Welcome to the LMG podcast series, first inaugural series. I'm your host, Leo Orlana. I am a co-owner and co-founder of Legacy Mortgage Group. And today I have with me three guests, also three associates of ours that we're proud to have and so happy to have here as a panel to discuss banker to broker, the residential side. So with me, we have Mr. Michael Bruni, Mr. Martin Kreslevich, and Cassandra Buzzle. Welcome, guys.
Happy to be here. Should be fun.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Pretty great studio too, eh?
Very nice. Very cool.
Here you guys. All right, let's get into it. Martin, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up in terms of career?
I wanted to be an architect, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so completely different from where I landed. But, when you're 10 years old or whatever, that's kind of how things work, right? Spaceman and explorer. So, yeah, architect. That was initially my first inclination as a child, I think.
Interesting. I wouldn't have factored that one in. Architect. Hey, I could see it though now. Hey.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
Cass, yourself.
Some khakis. Little fishing hat.
No doubt.
There you go.
Cass, yourself.
Marine biologist.
Really?
Yeah, I love dolphins. So that was where I thought I'd be. Definitely not finance, but, here we are.
Well, yeah, you got the heart for it, man. I'm telling you. Mr. Bruni.
I could see that.
Mr. Bruni.
I think like a lot of young Canadians, I wanted to be a hockey player growing up.
Okay.
Played a lot of hockey and loved being on a team, obviously, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later. But yeah, that was my dream. That was my goal.
Excellent.
So-
Now, all of you are in residential lending and finance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yay.
So we're all kind of close.
yeah, pretty close to, the dream job.
Right.
Well, it's unique, right? I mean, if rare is the person to actually say it, hey, I think I want to be a mortgage broker when I grew up, right? And so, but yet here we are, guys. Michael, how did you find your path or your way into the finance world?
Yeah, full disclosure, it's kind of been a family thing. My mom's been with one of the big banks for a long, long time, and she was kind of my entry point, and she taught me pretty much everything that I know. But without her, I probably wouldn't have gotten the introduction that I did to the finance world. And I really, coming out of university, like I think a lot of students, I didn't really have a firm plan or a firm kind of roadmap of where I was going to go. So just kind of with that family background, there was a couple of introductions there that she made, and that's kind of how I got my foot in the door.
So straight out of university.
Straight out of university, yeah. Jumped right into the mortgage industry.
Kind of fortunate to have that mother in that role, though, right?
Totally.
To kind of guide you a little bit, and because it can be a lonely place, right? Because you get
Very
to
lonely.
university and you don't know
Very lonely.
what do I do after here.
Especially the home equity side, especially being fully commissioned and hopping right into it as a 22-year-old. Without her, because there's not the training wheels are maybe there a little bit, but they're not huge. So without her there to teach me pretty much everything, like I said, it would have been a rocky road for sure. Would have been a steep learning curve, which it was, but it was much easier.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. Martin, yourself?
Geez, at 22, I wish I had made that decision that early.
I don't know if I'd recommend a 22-year-old jumping in, to be honest with you, but
And I mean, my route was a little bit more of a kind of a circular, curved route, maybe. I did also finance in university, but at the time didn't really know what that would lead to. Maybe stockbroker or financial planner, something like that. Wasn't sure. Ended up doing this stuff on the wealth side for a few years, and then realized that I really liked all the stuff that's on the other side of the balance sheet, meaning the liabilities and the mortgage and financing. And I kind of ended up at a company that did financing and got a little bit of a taste of mortgages and really, really enjoyed the mortgage side of things, more so than I thought I would. And so that really kind of led me into the banking end of it. But probably about 10 years after, maybe in my early 30s, I would say, is kind of when I joined the bank. So yeah, that did that for a long time, and more recently made the switch to the broker side. But that's kind of how I got here.
Wow, that's a nice long path, but it mixed with some wealth, money in, and then ultimately money out.
Yeah, and it was a good understanding of both sides of the balance sheet, which I think is a real asset for us as brokers to be able to understand investments and that part of it for people as well, because it's all part of their big picture when we're looking at things. So, yeah.
Cass, your entry.
I was just kind of fortunate. I had some family in finance, and they got me introduced to somebody at the bank. I was actually 21, so I got you beat there, Michael.
Oh,
Impressive,
Yeah, in
impressive.
2009. And within the first couple of years, again, I had a really nice opportunity. One of the mortgage specialists at the bank kind of saw something in me, and he offered me a position as an associate. And I kind of said, like, you do realize that I'm a teller and I do not know anything about mortgage financing. And he's
yeah.
like, yeah, it's okay. You'll learn everything that we'll teach you everything you need to know. And then they didn't teach me anything I needed to know, and it was like sink or swim. So that was fun, but quickly learned that I really enjoyed it. I definitely had a knack for people and wanted to work hard and learn. And so, yeah, I jumped right in, and
So
then,
from teller to associate.
yep,
Wow, that's quite the leap.
yeah, it was
Yeah, yeah, and that's
definitely a big learning curve.
and fortunate, right? I mean, usually people have to kind of work the entry level sales job, then get into higher second level, like a financial advisor, and then make that leap. But if someone had that faith in you to say, "Hey, come on over here and give you exposure to the real estate lending world,"
By
that's
I think I was 23.
wow.
But there's a but like there's a benefit to that though, starting at an entry level position and learning a little bit about the different, like that's something that I missed that I think looking back would have benefited me to learn about kind of the ins and outs of the different levels of finance and different areas of finance. Just because even though we're mortgage brokers now and that's what we specialize in, there's still other parts of banking that obviously relate to what we do. So
Yeah.
having that knowledge is very helpful, right?
Yeah, having that background in finances, knowing what statements look like, understanding
Right.
other financial products, because that comes into our world daily, right? And so having that background knowledge. Here, let me lead into another question that's just kind of off the record here. Then, um, do you recommend that if someone is looking at getting into our career or field in real estate secured lending, that they jump directly into an MMS role, or would you guys say that it's beneficial? You would recommend that they actually kind of take the steps towards moving, because Cass's situation is a little bit different. She went under somebody who was in real estate secured lending and she got exposure, but didn't have the pressure to be that individual that had to perform, tell them to remove conditions, be like, yeah, you're good to go, right? Because there's a lot of responsibility with
Mhm.
our roles when it comes to contracts and people's some of their largest investment at times, right? What are you guys' thoughts on gradually moving up or diving right in?
It's a tough one. I feel, the bank was definitely a super strong foundation for me. I really like I'm grateful for the time that I had at the bank. Especially as an associate to the two high performing mortgage professionals, like early on. It really like paved the way for my knowledge and, just kind of being able to, once I made the jump to mortgage specialist after that, I mean, I rocked it right away,
Mhm.
So I think that the bank is a good place to get that foundation in a, pretty secure, safe environment. Like, there's a little bit of a safety net there for you.
Mhm.
It is a little bit scary to go right into brokering, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but, in hindsight, I kind of do wish that I did it a little bit sooner and took the risk on myself, because now, I mean, looking back, I think I could have done that sooner.
Mhm. Mhm. So he's
I
got
I I agree. I that said, I think jumping right into our space, whether it's on the broker side or the bank side, there's a huge reputational component to it. So if you're jumping in brand new with no experience, and mistakes do happen, like I think we've all made mistakes. If there's a reputational damage to that, it can hinder somebody in the long run, right? So I think having a good mentor, whether it's at the bank or broker, and having a strong team to insulate you while you go through those learning curves, it's important to maybe work under somebody like you did, Cass,
Yep.
or work at a bank or be part of a team. I think getting that base knowledge first before you kind of go and make that leap to put your brand on the line, I think would be important.
Yeah. And Martin, you in your previous roles, you manage people, right? So you've
Yeah. Yeah, I had a bit of experience in management in financial sector, which, I mean, I don't know how much that really gave me in terms of experience coming into the mortgage role.
Mhm.
I think, what Michael and Cassandra have mentioned is probably the most important thing, is if you are going to go in, that you've got a mentor at least, or somebody that can kind of help you when you're not sure of something or before you make a mistake that could be costly or
Mhm.
affect your reputation, because at the beginning it's more likely to happen. So I know there are people that just jump in and figure it out, but it is a little bit more risky to do it that way, I think. And if you can get some support, either through being an associate first, like Cassandra was, or just having the right mentor for the first little while, I think it's really a
Mhm.
lot more advantageous.
Yeah, I agree.
And the last thing I'll add is like the cool part about our industry is that every deal is a little bit different. And so you don't like, you can read as many manuals and as many guidelines as you want to,
Mhm.
but it's never going to cover really a lot of deals that you see. And that just comes with experience.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it is. And that's where a mentor to teach you those things and to show you different scenarios that you'll run into eventually, it's invaluable, right?
Yeah, and I'll chime in here too. I kind of agree. I think it's to dive in with no experience, fresh out of a course. It can be a pretty scary, lonely place, right? And if you don't have that support system or that mentorship or someone to help kind of guide you, it's almost like you're feeling yourself your way through a dark room, right? And what's scary about that sometimes is the consequences are real in this industry, right? You're dealing with real contracts, you're dealing with real purchases, you're dealing with real litigation if some of these files don't go through. So, and to your point too, reputation is everything in our business. And I always find that this business is it can be unforgiving, right?
Totally.
So you work really hard to try to work with some referral sources or people. You mess up once, you may never have that opportunity again. So having that safety net, someone to kind of guide you through, I think is really advantageous. However, there are those aces out there, those magical hires that just they get it, they want it, they drive, they figure it out, they're super like resourceful.
It can be
Resourceful,
done.
yeah.
It can
Yeah.
be done.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you do see those people that just with nothing go in and they're fantastic and
Mhm.
they do it. But I mean, it's probably a bit of a reckless approach if unless you really know, like you have real good confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
But-
And mistakes are going to happen. You just hope those mistakes are 3s and 4s, not 9s and 10s.
Well, and
right?
also that like the collateral damage isn't too significant because like we're dealing with people, human beings that, coming to us in a very vulnerable position, right? Like at the end of the day, this is a goal of theirs, a dream of theirs, maybe where they're trying to get into home ownership. I always I don't take for granted how vulnerable that space is for a customer, a client of ours to come to us and kind of bear it all. I always say like they're coming to us like to a broker almost in their birthday suit, like
Mhm.
look at this is everything I've worked for the last number of months, maybe years, and this is all of my income, this is all of my savings, like this is my credit. Am I good enough? So
Mhm.
and then if we're inexperienced and we're trying to provide them with advice and a mortgage solution and we mess up, I mean, that's a human being on the other side of that. So we have to be very, very
yeah.
mindful of that.
Yep.
So that comment, Cass, thanks, Cass. That comment brings up a question that I kind of often always have, and I'll base it from my own experience. Uh, when I was at the bank, I was kind of learning kind of daily by just customers. I was in a financial advisor position, right? You would get someone who wanted a loan, then you would get someone who wanted to open an account, then you would get someone who want a mortgage. I'd never done a mortgage in my life, and this gentleman kind of sat down with me, and I was fumbling. I knew how to kind of do a credit application, but I wasn't too sure how to do a mortgage.
You want
And
fixed or variable?
I was just like, and I was just kind of feeling my way through, right? And he started to pick up that I really didn't know what I was doing. And I had to explain to him, just like, listen, this is my first time. I'm sorry if I'm slower, but if I don't have the answer, I'll answer. I'll get you the answer. And very, very kind person, never came back, right?
Yeah.
Very kind, right? But I realized, I looked back and I kind of learned mortgages organically. I don't know what your guys' experience was with training. You had a mentor, right? Where you got that hands-on training. They were in the field. When I moved from financial advisor to mortgage specialist, I had a great support team, but I was kind of on my own. I felt there was no real formal technical training about mortgage, real estate secured lending and its fundamentals. There were manuals, but you kind of just had to figure it out. What were your guys' experience, Michael, when you kind of moved over? And again, you had a bit of an advantage, I think, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally. I had an advantage with the family background, but like you said, the bank will kind of give you like I think it was a 3-week training regiment that they put us through just to learn about the system and how to input information. But when it came to the ins and outs of learning the qualification process,
Hmm.
it was kind of like, here you go. Here's another number of one of your coworkers. Call them with any questions.
Hmm.
But
And here's the folio to refer to.
and here's the folio to
The
refer to. But
policies are
there's-
there, but
right.
there's a lot of
Right.
information.
And there's a lot of gray area too, right?
Yeah.
And I'll circle back to experience. That's what you learn with experience is what do those gray areas mean? Where can you push? Where can you pull? So it was kind of like sink or swim, really. It was. And without, like I said, without my mom there to teach me everything, it would have been a much rockier road. Now looking back with, the 8 years of experience that I have, it's easy to look back and say, oh yeah, you can do that, you can do this. But at the time, once you have a live deal, you have to figure it out really quick.
Yeah.
Right? So
And you're on the clock too,
You're on the
right? I
clock.
mean, there's a conditioned timeline and customers harping at you, real estate agents, hey, where we at? Where we at? Underwriting may be slowing down and you're like, I don't know. I'm
Mhm.
waiting for the answer, right?
Mhm.
Martin, what was your kind of experience in how you kind of learned the craft?
I mean, at the beginning at the bank, you mean? When
Mhm.
I first started in the mortgage role? Yeah, I didn't have the experience in the branch at any level. I came in to the mortgage role directly from outside. So I didn't have any banking background, telling the teller side or anything like that. So it was really kind of a sink or swim. But I mean, I did have a mentor where I started that was accessible. And when I really got stuck, he was able to kind of jump in and give me a quick kind of push in the right direction. Cause often that's kind of where we fumble is we're not really sure and we kind of just freeze, right? And that deal just freezes because you're not sure what you can or can't do.
Mhm.
So it's good to have a broker that's experienced or a mortgage specialist in that case where they can just say, here's what you got to do. And so, that happens a few times. But as you do more and more deals, right? Like you guys have experienced, you get a little bit more comfortable with knowing, how to continue moving that deal forward.
Yeah.
So, but I think also that's intentional, right? Whether it's at the banks or whether it's in the broker world, you kind of need to be a self-starter, right? And I know we're going to talk about this more, like what type of person it really takes to do this, but you can't really rely on other people, right? Like
Yeah.
you can in
Mhm.
some of those roles. So you kind of have to be able to figure it out and kind of wing it sometimes too.
Mhm.
I think like we get through experience, we learn more so how to people manage also. So we're, kind of able to let the client know, hey, you know what, we're gonna get back. I'm gonna get back to you right away with this answer. Like I'm not 100% sure right now, but I'll find out. And we become a lot more resourceful. We know where to go to get those answers. So that's definitely something that, like you say, like what it takes to be in this space is resourcefulness and somebody who has confidence to speak to people, and be able to let them know that what we're gonna get it done.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna get it done on time, but I don't know everything,
And-
and you have to be honest. You have to, because we learn a lot on the fly, right?
And we still are, like,
And
right?
we are, yeah.
We're all tenured now, and we
Yeah.
still ask each other questions all the time. Hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this?
Yeah.
We were
'Cause
chatting
nobody's gonna
yesterday.
know.
And I'll still
Yeah.
tell a
Nobody's gonna know.
client, you know what, I'm not sure about that. I'm going to
100%.
get back to you because
But that's
sometimes you
kind of
don't.
what I love about this business, right? Is that it's hard to get boring because there's always something that you haven't seen. There's always a scenario that'll pop up, and we live in a world. I always say we live in a world of pliable pillars, right? They have these policies, but there's always an exception to this policy or an exception to that. What I love about it is it's the common sense approach, right? Mitigate risk for the lender. Why should the lender feel comfortable moving forward with lending on this property or for these individuals, these covenant holders, right? So what I'm getting at is the general sense of it is it's a lot easier if you got some support, and it takes fortitude and drive and self resourcefulness to make it.
Sure does.
Beautiful.
And some confidence.
All right,
Confidence
guys.
is huge.
So we're all at the bank. We all come from the banking world. We're all mortgage specialists. We're doing our thing. And the topic starts to come up from time to time. There's always the banking world, and then there's the broker world, right? At what point did you guys start considering the switch or going to what some have said in culinary industry in the big five industry, the dark side? All right. First, some people, right?
That's what we used to call it. 100%.
So, Cass, I'll start with you.
Sure.
Where did you kind of start to get that tickle or that idea?
there's when I first started, my mentor used to talk about the good old days, and we used to be able to do a mortgage with a pay stub and a T4, and who knows if that was valid. And I was kind of like, okay, I don't really know what you're talking about the good old days, but this is what the policies and guidelines and regulations are now.
Right.
And and then after a solid 10 years with the bank, I started to realize what the good old days were. And through kind of COVID, after COVID, things changed a lot in the banking world, and it was making me feel more and more and more like an employee. And back in the good old days,
Hmm.
I didn't feel that way. I felt like I was like, going out into the market and doing my thing. We were external sales force. So, we were told to go out and meet with realtors and builders and bring the business into the bank, right?
Hmm.
That was what we were supposed to do. And then something shifted, and I just felt like such an employee. And it made me realize that like my clients weren't mine, my business wasn't mine.
Hmm.
And I didn't like that because I just felt
So did you
like
feel like it was a lack of control in your business, or was it a
um,
lack of maybe recognition? So, because there's different drivers for people, right?
I like the word autonomy.
Autonomy.
yeah, I like that word a lot
I
too.
Yeah.
think just the ability to just independently do your thing
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
options.
vanished kind of,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I
At
think
that time.
things changed a lot, and I personally just really realized that I wanted to have my own business. I wanted my clients to be my clients. I
Hmm.
wanted my book to be my book. And so I decided to start to make that happen. Started to look.
That's when you started to kind of look on the other side of the fence,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Martin.
Yeah, I mean, really similar to Cass's story there. I think, and I think that theme is really resonates with a lot of people that are in that role still, because that is a thing that has happened in the industry, and people receive it in the same manner, and they do start to think about that. And I think especially more tenured mortgage professionals that have been with a bank for 10 years, 15 years, or more even,
Hmm.
because you do ask yourself those questions, and you do, ask yourself, well, what do I have of value here that's mine actually, right?
Yeah.
And I think we recognize that, after a while, it's your clients really that you've helped are, they're looking for you to advise them, not so much the bank. Like, you are the face of the bank. You are that piece of advice that has helped them repeatedly over the years, and that's who they call, right? And so you ask yourself, well, why shouldn't I have that and operate that at my own will and the way I want it,
Yeah, like you
right?
represent the bank,
Yeah,
but ultimately the relationship is being built by you
of course.
with the customer, and there is a big relationship of trust, right? Again, to Cass's point, we're dealing with a really big deal here, right? We're dealing with trust. At some point, you're building that trust relationship. It's not just a transaction. People are taking faith that you're doing everything you can to get them, the best terms, to meet the timelines on time, and so that goes a long way, right?
Yeah,
And you're right. So for you, sometimes so what I'm hearing from both of you so far is, it's a little bit of, you're saying autonomy. You're saying I'm not really running my own business, um, albeit I'm a representative of the bank. Because when I worked at the bank too, they used to kind of say like, oh, you're running your own business. But when you really peel back the onion and take a look back, you're not, because you would have to ask for permission for marketing. You would have to ask for permission for a lot of things. And don't get me wrong, the bank has to protect its image. It has to protect its clientele. But you're right. It was kind of like I'm an employee with a little bit more freedom.
But those clients belong to the bank.
Mhm.
Cut and dry. They're not
Correct.
yours. As much as you want to believe they're yours, and as much as you service those clients and build those relationships and build that trust,
Mhm.
they're not your clients.
Like investment advisor who builds their book,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're building a book of clientele and a book of business, and you hope to have some residual income from those relationships over time. I mean, that's our business,
Yeah.
right? Michael, yourself, when did that bug start?
Yeah, I think like on a macro level, the autonomy part is 100% true. When I started to think about it more and more was, I think every client that you lose, you start to do some reflection and say, okay, why did I lose that client? What did I do something to lose that client
Mhm.
or lose that deal, or why couldn't I get it done? And I found that as time passed, every deal or every client that I'd lose, more often than not, it would be to a broker. And it wasn't necessarily anything that I would do, but and I try to flip it and put myself in the shoes of the client. Why did the client choose to go there? Well, that's because a broker in a lot of cases was able to offer something that I wasn't at the bank.
Hmm.
That was the truth, right? And unfortunately, as much as I can try and say, I'll do this, I'll do this, there was a lack of flexibility there,
Well, we had to
right?
go to the bank and ask
And
permission,
ask, right?
for a rate, an exception. And we still have to do that as a broker, but we have so many more options in terms of the lender, and, the conversation is just so different.
Totally, 100%. And so losing clients is very frustrating, especially when you put hours and work into it. And so that was a frustrating part of it. And I noticed that more and more. I think that the mortgage landscape is changing. You can look at the numbers in terms of bank source mortgages versus broker source mortgages.
Mhm.
The train has kind of left the station. And I was at a point in my career where I could either hop on it or get left behind, right? And I think we've kind of seen
Yeah.
that happen.
Did you guys ever lose that deal to a broker? And obviously you're dealing with your one institution, so you've got one policy book, you've got one kind of avenue or avenues within that policy book that the lender's willing to go down, and you'd say, well, there's no way this can get approved.
Oh, all the time.
And then
100%.
on the A side, there's no way this can get approved, right? So you're just like, listen, I can't approve you, I'm so sorry. The customer's like, oh, okay, and then lo and behold, you talk to that realtor later and they're like, oh yeah, we got it done through a broker. And you sat there and you're like, how?
Yeah.
How? Did that happen to you guys?
All the time.
Did that
Yeah.
ever make you question,
May-
like, how though? Like
Yeah.
that boggled my mind. I lost a deal once where I was like, there's no way this can get done. I was convinced that there's no way that this can get done on the A side.
Right.
And yeah, the realtor told me just like, yeah, thanks Leo, like for trying, brought you the file, and unfortunately it didn't fit with your lender.
And maybe not that we could do things, but maybe not do them to the extent that broker could. For example, I could approve somebody for 400,000, and then they'd go to broker and get a little bit more. And I would like question, how did that happen? Like the numbers are the numbers, right? That's what
Yeah.
you think at the bank. The numbers are the numbers. And in some cases that's accurate, but you just don't know the different avenues that you can explore to move those numbers around.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Leo.
Exactly.
Yep.
I get it. Okay, guys. And okay, so all right, you're buzzing around. You're starting to look on the other side. I've been there where you guys have been. Let's face it. The big lenders, large banks, they're always going to have shifts and changes up top. They're going to have changes in policies and approaches to how the business is going to be done. Bottom line drives kind of everything, but there's also culture shifts, right? Management shifts. For me, I started to feel sometimes that the role was losing its cream. It wasn't so much about compensation for me as well too, is that I started to feel like Cass, what you were saying, that I was becoming more and more wrangled in and wrapped in as just an employee, and I loved the flexibility of being a mortgage specialist. I had access to the bank's resources. I represented the bank. I did everything that they did, but just on I was a hunter gatherer. I ate what I caught, right? And you're right. If you stay there long enough, you start to become that old guard where you start to talk about the old days, right? When you started and how things were in the old days, and the new.
That's the time you should be looking at your options.
And there seems to be that natural cycle, right? I've always find it's about like a 5 to 7 year push where then people have been there and they really start saying, okay, well, things have changed now. It's been a great run. I'm pretty experienced and I want to take a look at the dark side. I want to peek over the fence. I might even want to just hop over, right? So when you're in that position, scary place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big change. You don't know what you don't know, right? What are you looking for? What's going through your head? What are you trying to start considering? What are you looking for in a mortgage brokerage? What are you trying to find? Where are you trying, what was it? What was your experience like?
I think the scariest part about leaving a big institution is you're losing that brand recognition, right? You're losing that security. And so when I was leaving, when I made the decision to firmly leave, I wanted to join a brokerage that had a little bit of that security and a little bit of that brand recognition. Of course, it's never going to be a big bank. That's unrealistic, but you still want a sense of like when you make that leap, you want a sense of a little bit of insulation and a little bit of backing, because it is a lonely place when you're going from, you know, Michael or Martin or Cass from big bank to Michael or Martin and Cass independent broker, right? Like
Right.
that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
That was the thing that scared me the most when I was humming and hawing about moving.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you join a place that supports you, you know, brand wise, but also, you know, talking about how much stuff you need to learn and ask questions. You need a support system there as well.
Martin, yourself, what was on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, doubt. You know,
Yep.
like, can I do it? Can I like, will I fail if I leave this safety net of the bank, right? And you know, your mind after so many years of being in one place paints a picture for yourself in a certain manner that sometimes isn't necessarily true, but because you've only known that,
Mhm.
you can't, you know, and sometimes like it was my spouse that said, no, you can do it. Like you don't need to continue this. You can do that and be successful. And so getting past that initial, and maybe it's just me and, you know, other people don't have that doubt, but I think a lot of people do, right? They're afraid to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So getting past that was probably the biggest hurdle for me, is just like, would I be able to do it on my own independently, right?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, you know, I underestimated myself, which is always better than overestimating yourself when you're going to take a giant leap of faith and become self-employed, right? But
It's a cautious approach, right?
yeah,
I
but
mean,
and that's just the type of person I am. But I think that was the biggest thing. And then once I determined that no, I can do it, then it was a matter of finding the right fit. And then, you know, to what Michael was saying, that brand became important. Who are these people I'm going to tie my kind of wagon to or hitch
Mhm.
my wagon to? And will I get the support I need to be successful, right?
and we're going to swing back to support, guys. I just want to give Cass an opportunity to kind of say, all right, what was rolling through your mind when you start to say, all right, I'm going to start looking.
For me, really similar to Michael as well. Like the brand recognition was something that really kept me at the bank for a long time. And then when I, was looking around, I think leadership was a big thing. I wanted to make sure that like my reputation had my best interests at heart, and that I again was going to get that support, um, and have like people like a new family, right? Because we
Right.
kind of drink the Kool-Aid when you're at the bank, and you have this family system, and you kind of want to feel like you're joining a new family because like we've talked about, like the broker channel can be lonely,
Yeah.
and I really appreciated that, kind of the core values and the family approach that Legacy has.
The culture.
The culture.
Right.
Yes,
Culture.
Now
yes.
on the flip side of that too, though, I'm sure there's some people that are looking at making the jump and going totally independent, and they just say, you know what, I want to do my own thing. I'm good at what I do. I don't need the support, and you can find that too, right? So there's a fit for everybody. It's just finding kind of
Yeah.
what works best for your style.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe, what we try to do as an organization is cater to both, but know that if you need that support, independent, no problem. We've got resources. Some people work really well on their own. Some people like to work from home. Other people love the office, right? People love coming to the office. They love that cadence, that joking around, that the separation of church and state. I always like to say of home and work, and culture, right?
Outside of that, though, another really big thing was someone who was going to inspire me to do it in the broker channel. And
Mhm.
I loved you and Sandeep, like you're just all over the place. You're doing everything. You're doing it at like a top tier, and it was inspiring. Like, and it made me realize that when I go into the broker channel, like I don't just have to kind of like disappear on my own, like I can make my name and do all these really cool things and be inspired by the people that are around me. And that was huge. That was
Yeah.
actually one of the biggest drivers that I had.
And we love that. And we love that you're pushing on social. We love that you're putting your name out there. You're getting your spin. And to be honest with you, as an owner, we love to see the growth of our associates and the different directions that people take and the avenues. It's very inspiring to us. And it's what motivates us to continue to reinvest in the company, reinvest our capital, our time capital, and just watch associates grow because we've sat in that chair. right? We know exactly where you're coming from, right?
Yeah, I think our
Right.
brokerage is really lucky in that I think we found, the three of us, I can speak for, I think in this, is that we found that culture, that mix of, still having the belonging to a group, a community, a culture within that company, but having the flexibility of still having autonomy and being able to independently work and have the flexibility that you need, but the support is there when you need it, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's not true in the case of every brokerage either, because I did my share of looking as well, and some are definitely more independent, and you're kind of on your own, and they don't have that culture really at all. So it's nice that we have the office, we have the people are in there. If you want to go in and chat with people and just kick around ideas, it's really easy to do that. And when you need to be left alone and just work away at home, you can do that too. And so I love that hybrid kind of model that we have here.
Mm.
Did the COVID experience impact the decision for you guys when it came to joining a team environment versus kind of maybe going a little bit more
That's a great question
on
because
your
it was
own?
a big
'Cause
shakeup
Right.
after COVID, right? Like culture really changed in financial institutions, a lot of companies.
Because I'll tell you, it did for me. Like that was
Yeah.
going through COVID and being kind of isolated and working from home. That really firmly made my decision to be somewhere where I could interact with people and learn. Just because that's coming from a team background in
And you
sports.
love coming to the office.
I love coming to the office. That's how I learn. That's how
And
I
he drives
get
far.
motivation.
He
Right?
drives
It's
far.
clear across the city.
But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
right. But like once again, circling back to COVID, like that kind of it showed you how things could be if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But that kind of swayed me the other way.
It did for me too, actually. Yeah, that was important.
Right.
I don't think I could have joined a brokerage where I had none of that,
Right.
because I did miss that a little bit after COVID. So, it's nice that we do have that. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I'm a little bit opposite. So through COVID, I kind of realized like how much I could get done if I didn't have to go to the office and talk to anybody.
Right.
And I was like, wow, I can
Minus all the
really put in
distractions
some
in your day.
numbers here. Like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
So that actually kind of gave me more confidence, because I realized like at that time, not like none of my business was really coming from the bank anyway. So, the training wheels were long gone at that point. And so I just kind of really realized that I could do so much when I was working from home and not having to, kind of entertain all the hustle and bustle in the
Right.
branch and,
Mm.
do the schmoozing in that way, for the like kind of low quality referrals, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Better to just kind of source it yourself and be independent. That's great feedback, guys. We love that. Touches my heart. I appreciate that. I know Sonny would too. Okay. So you're now shopping brokerages. You're starting to interview, right? Obviously, you're going to start to want to benchmark a few places. How important is a firm onboarding process or understanding you join us? This is the process to be able to get you up and running, to get engaged with the leadership team, with the company. How important that was? How important was that to you, Cass? When you were
You
considering?
guys blew me away. I mean, honestly, I was so excited when I left that initial meeting, where you guys kind of showed me like the systems that I'd be working with and the tools that we had. I thought to myself, like, again, I'm gonna get all the things that I've been looking for in terms of like structure and support, and with these tools and getting off of some of the dated systems perhaps that we were using in the bank, again, like the growth is just going to be exponential. And I have to say, a couple years in now on the broker channel, like it's absolutely been that. And I'm just really, really happy with it, and really was like excited from day one. When I saw it, I was just like, this is it.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Martin,
Yeah.
Martin, what were what were you expectations met?
Same thing.
Were you
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like I was, hesitant about, just how, will there be something structured to kind of facilitate that onboarding? And so I was, very happy when I realized that it was fairly structured, and I did have, one-on-one attention from, multiple individuals in different areas that needed to get set up. So the process was made quite simple, and it did take a lot of the stress of that transition out, if I'm to
Mhm.
be honest. And So that's good because, there's other stresses that you have, obviously, when you start,
Right.
in the broker channel, that just because of so many new things that you have to learn. So, minimizing the friction points on the onboarding was really important.
Mm.
Right. Yeah.
Michael?
I think it's as much as you want to make it, right? Like organization is such a huge part of our business, right? Because going from the bank to the broker side, you're now dealing with all of these different lenders that you have to keep kind of tabs on. You have dates, important dates that you have to keep track of. So some people already have that system in place if you've been in the industry for a little while. Some don't. So I think as a brokerage, like presenting those tools to use is huge if you want to use them. Personally, I took a lot of what you guys taught me. But maybe not everybody does if they have their own system in place. So I think it's kind of as much or as little as you want to use it. But making the transition, it's going from one option to quite a few options.
Mhm.
So having kind of that platform and that base organization in place, I think is very valuable.
You
Yeah.
know, and I have to say, like, I did look around and it was a very different experience as well. Far less organized. Like when I asked for like a system tour, that they were like, what do you mean? What do you want to see? So I thought that was
Really?
yeah, oh yeah, with like some big names. They weren't small fries. And it was a completely different experience where I left kind of feeling like, okay, I mean, I guess people don't usually ask for this,
It's
or
left kind of feeling like you're walking into a dark room.
very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yes.
feel we have a lot of value added with our current setup in the brokerage that other brokerages don't go that extra distance to provide.
Hmm.
We've talked about, just the ability to keep the kind of the notes on the clients. That system is fantastic, right? It's not something I had before. And,
Mhm.
organize from an organizational standpoint. I mean, I don't know how I did without it before,
Me
to be
too.
honest with you.
I know.
Yeah.
So, that was something that was, just provided to us, which is great. Um,
I'll share with you guys where that kind of came from. Again, me and Sonny, when we left the bank, we had never brokered a deal in our lives, and we had a very ambitious idea. We were like you. We were kind of shopping around, and no disrespect to anybody else, but we were a bit underwhelmed when we were looking at the broker side. We were considering where to go, and the technology was greater than the banks at that time. I'd say it still is, right? The submission platforms, the ability to use a whole bunch of other systems outside of the bank's network to combine together to enhance your ability to drive value and efficiencies. We were just underwhelmed with, I guess, the approach. And some brokerages, the ownership had one foot out the door. They weren't looking to expand into social media. They were kind of they didn't have a system set in place. And of course, you can do whatever you want. They're like, I do whatever you want, however you want. I'm like, so how am I going to get support if everyone's operating on different systems, right? So we went through that. And you got to understand this: we didn't know a thing on the brokering side. We started and we had to, we literally felt our way through that room in the dark. But little by little, we started to create those resources. And there's other individuals on our leadership team that have taken those resources, have enhanced them and created them. And really, it's the feedback that we get from our associates that has really brought our tech and our offering to the level that it's at. And we continue to ask for your guys' feedback to develop that. And I think that's a testament to where our idea and our culture is in terms of driving value for our associates. You have to remember, us as broker owners, our customers are not the end user who are getting the mortgages. Our customers are you guys, right? Our customers are our associates. So we need to make sure that you guys are happy. We need to make sure that we're following up with you guys to improve that experience. And we always welcome that feedback.
And I would say, like, for anyone that's considering that transition, that's something that I didn't think about, but is important, is that integration is like, how well is this brokerage integrated within all the systems that they use? Do they even have the systems that you need?
Right.
Because like your ability to put through deals quickly and be organized and not miss things and be compliant, super important. And if
Right.
there's no tools to aid in that, and it's not integrated, then you're just going to be less efficient. And in this business, that's just, I mean, that's a money and a time waster, right? For a broker. So,
Yeah.
having that is really, really huge, I think.
But and it's important to note too that like brokerage doesn't need to do that for their brokers. But I think Legacy's done a good job of choosing to do that and sharing what you guys have learned since you started and adding that value,
Mhm.
right? You very like a lot of brokerages cast, like you said, say, hey, here's your license, go ahead, good luck, right? And so I think choosing to share that knowledge and make our jobs and lives easier, that just speaks to the culture that you guys have built and choosing to share that. And then as a broker, part of that culture as well is helping each other
The
through
feedback
that.
too.
The
Yeah.
feedback,
Yeah,
right?
we can make those systems better just through our experience and feedback, right?
Right.
Which
And,
is
and
great.
I'll give you guys, I'll give my former employer credit. We actually had a really good supportive team, and we had the chat and the group, and everyone was, and I credit it to my old boss. She kind of fostered a culture of support, and we decided that we were going to take that and we were going to run with that in whatever we developed.
I mean,
right?
you guys absolutely like took the best of the bank and brought it to the broker world and made it your own. And I mean, that's like
That
what
was the
makes
idea. That was the
that,
idea.
yeah,
Right?
that's
That
what
was the
makes
idea.
legacy so great. Like and it feels comfortable for somebody who's leaving the bank and going to the broker channel for the first time, because we are scared, we haven't ever taken the chance on ourselves, and we're doing something different, and we're making all these
It's
changes,
a big leap.
and
It's a big leap,
Huge.
big leap of
right?
faith.
It's a big change in your career. I mean, you're leaving the bank. I'll tell you this real quick. When I decided to go from an FA to an MMS, and I told my mother, again, your mom's always gonna be like, "Oh, I don't know, son. It's
Old
commission
school.
based and this, yeah, yeah, blah blah." I mean, she worked for the government for years. She had 2 kids, right? She needed security, and I just kind of told her, like, "Mom, when have I ever failed at what I really love to do?" She's like, that's true. Right. So but again, because those systems were there, I had that confidence at that time. And then it's time to move on. All right, guys. So you've chosen a brokerage, you're moving over, you're getting your feet wet, you're learning the systems. Looking back, or some of you have been brokers not too long, others longer. Um, what are the traits that started to show that you were going to have success? Or but here's a better question: what traits in an individual, personal and professional, do you think will make a successful mortgage broker?
Martin, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think focus, right? Having the ability to know what your goal is and what you want to accomplish, the big picture as a broker. Because like Cass said, I mean, you are starting your own business, right? You are the brand now fully within the brokerage's framework. But so having a focus of what you want to achieve, and that's the exciting part too, right? Is that's what can propel you now, is knowing that you can create that yourself. You can be what you want to be. And the ability to really be organized, I think, is huge. And that's where, the right brokerage can help with that, because those systems, that integration is really key there. But yeah, focus, organization. Um, and I don't know. I mean, just the ability to really not get discouraged with the amount of new information that you're going to see that
Yeah.
first few months, because it is a lot different than what you're used to. But that's also the exciting part, I think, just learning those new things and growing, right? If you want to grow and expand, like, this is the place to do it for sure.
Right.
You're the most recent on board.
Right.
What was that learning curve like?
It was exciting. Like that's the word that I would use to describe it, is exciting, because it's just, for me, the learning was exciting because it's like your eyes are opening to all these different options, and like, oh, look what I can do now.
Mhm.
Like, sure, is it a little bit overwhelming sometimes? For sure, but I think you learn how to navigate it with the help of the systems that the brokerage has. But it was so exciting because these are tools that you can now use to help people.
Mhm.
That's the most exciting part, and do and excel at your job. Whereas before, the lack of those options kind of did the opposite, right?
Got discouraging for sure.
Discouraging, yeah.
It was tough at
Stale,
times. Yeah.
discouraging,
Yeah, a
for
little
sure.
stale, for sure. I think a growth mindset, kind of to piggyback off you guys, like, growth mindset is huge. Like, kind of that willingness to grow. You want to, and it gave you so many tools to help your clients. And for me, I mean, I just couldn't believe how I thought I was. I was. I mean, I was the best mortgage specialist I could have been at that time,
Mhm.
and I knew, as much as I did, and I thought that was a good amount. I thought I was an expert. I did all the hard stuff. I did, construction, draw mortgage financing, and self-employed business owners, and that was my jam.
Yeah.
But it was shocking how much I actually had to learn when I entered into the broker channel. But again, like exciting. I wanted to, very much so was just very happy to learn all of everything that brokering was.
Did your jaw not drop when
Oh
you
yeah.
could see what like the alternative lending arm side, like the private
Right.
side?
I realized that banking is like the tip of the iceberg and brokering is what's underneath.
Right.
Wow.
Would you say you're better at your job? Like aside from all the options that you have, but would you say you're better at your job now than you were when you're at the bank?
150%.
Just in terms of your processes and your routine?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about just like, that first deal where, there's no way you would have ever done this at the bank. And you're like finding a solution for your client, and your client is ecstatic. Because at the bank, it would have been, I can't help you. And, here's some advice on what to do. But now you can actually find that solution for them and help them. And there's no better feeling, right? And if that doesn't motivate you further, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
I kind of equated to like riding a bike at the bank. You had a little bit of training wheels, right? You can kind of wobble and the bank would kind of keep you upright. You had a manager that would check in and, you're doing okay. But on the broker space, you don't have that, right? So it's, the training wheels come off and you got to ride it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so that I think personally, like I think I'm way better at my job now. Not that I wasn't doing well elsewhere,
Yeah.
but you have to, right? You have to, or else that's just the reality of the
You're
broker side.
truly an independent contractor
Right.
running your own business. There's a lot of freedom, but there's also a lot of responsibility and a lot of personal requirements,
Right.
let's call it, to succeed.
Gave me
right?
a lot of confidence though. Like, like you say, Martin, the first time that I was able to kind of put together that solution that would have never happened at the bank, like, you get that a little, extra little bit of confidence where you're like, wow, okay, like I have more solutions than I thought. And then you get into, get a little crazy and start trying to do some B stuff
Right.
or
Like,
work with
that's
a
how they
big
did it.
lender.
That's how
or,
they did it. Right.
private. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, like, wow, like, look at me. I'm
You know what I love? You know what I love about seeing bakers and brokers is the pension. Some people like, oh man, I'm an A guy. I love my A business. I dabble in the B's. Other people like, I love B stuff, right? And you have the people that are mixes in between.
But that's the
Um,
beauty of this side, man. You can pick.
Oh
Right?
yeah,
You
well,
can
and
kinda choose.
I would have never thought that I'd be like dabbling in B. I'm like, I'm an A lender all day. All my client base is A. I'm probably just gonna stick with A. But there's a need for B. There's a need for MIC. There's a
guys, let's
need
call
for
it alternative.
private.
Let's call it alternative lending.
Yeah,
Alternative
sure.
lending, right?
Alternative.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you're right. You're right. There's that space, and
Yeah.
without exposure to it, a deal that didn't work at your previous employer on the A side, Big Five. Yeah, sorry, just we don't have a solution for you, right? And you would let that customer go. Whereas here now, I always feel like you're looking for that A solution, but if there isn't that A solution, we can now go to the next level and we can take a look at some alternative lending solutions,
I
right?
think those alternative lending solutions also are very important right now in this particular economic climate because, really, I personally believe that we're starting to really see the impacts of COVID like in this last maybe 24 months. Where there's been a lot more layoffs, there's been job loss, and and the unemployment rates are really high, and people's debt loads are just really
Canadians have the highest
uncomfortable.
unsecured debt load in all G7 countries.
And you're going to have more clients that are going to be turned down by their bank, right?
Yep.
Just, we can't help you, sorry. And, where do those people go, right? So,
Well, what they do is go to an awful consumer proposal and then ruin their credit and, just are in a really, really bad spot for a long time. Whereas, they can go with an alternative lender, do debt consolidation, in a lot of cases, and they have a solution that isn't detrimental to their credit for a long period of time.
it's a plan, right? You're providing them
Yeah.
a plan because it's not just like a one time, okay, here's the solution. Like the solution is we do this. And then in a year or two, if you do these things, then we will then go back to an A lender. And often you're just really guiding them back to where they were, right?
Right.
Correct. Instead of just saying, sorry, I don't have
Yeah.
any solution, or I can't help you at this
It's a
time.
temporary solution, and it's I mean it's life changing for these people. I mean they're just drowning in their unsecured debts, making payments every month, and the amount of times in the last 24 months that I've done a restructure of someone's debt load and improved their cash flow and put them in a better position
With a game
and
plan.
with a game plan
Yeah.
to get them, back to better credit and back to, slightly better interest rates, let's say. It's been life-changing for these people. And then they're so grateful that like it just feels really, really
Talk
good.
about building trust,
Yeah.
right? And a strong
It
relationship
just
there with the
continues that
customer.
relationship with your client, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough too now in, a little less than 2 years to already have helped someone out of a situation that they found themselves in, provided that alternate lending solution, had a plan. The plan came to fruition. We've put them back with the bank lender. So like,
You're the
not-
king of debt restructure, hey?
I love it. I love it. And, there's way more options for my clients on this side than there were at the bank, unfortunately. And
Mhm.
sometimes the bank can help, but not always, right? And that's the thing. So,
Right.
at the end of the day, it's just being able to help them out of that situation.
Bank was also very restrictive in debt consolidation. Like they would make you close down all the credit cards after paying them down. And I find in the broker channel, there's a lot more options where the clients can actually like keep their credit facilities,
Yeah.
maybe reduce limits if they want to, just to kind of keep things a bit more manageable going forward. But and that's really better for people because they aren't forced to close down credit facilities that are
they're gonna
reporting
need.
well
Yeah.
and they're going to need. And
Yeah.
then they have to go back and reapply for that credit and have a ding on their credit because they applied for credit. And, it's just silly.
So what I'm hearing is coming from the bank to the broker channel now, you put it in terms of a tradesman, you've got more tools in your tool belt. Right,
Exactly.
you've
Great
got more.
analogy.
You've got
Exactly
more
right.
options, right, to be able to get to work
To help
and
people.
and to build, right,
Right.
to build or restructure or to construct,
Right.
relationships, options, right? Yeah, that's great, Michael. So let me ask you this, and be honest, because I've got my opinion on it too. Have you lost, and do you lose coming to the broker side versus working directly for the bank? It's a bit of a loaded
It's a
question,
tough question.
right?
Yeah, it's a tough question. Full transparency, not a lot, really,
Mhm.
just because of the options that we just talked about, right? Like, I there's not a major, major, major downside or a major loss that I look back and say, I wish I would have had that or I missed that. I can't say I've said that very
Mhm.
many times, to be quite honest. Maybe
Unless we were
you guys,
joking.
right? But like, unless can you guys really think of one major? I could be missing something, but that's my opinion. Like my opinion,
And this question goes out to all you guys. I
Right.
mean,
No. I mean, the biggest thing is, you're going from a system where you do the same thing every time and you know that process inside and out because there's only one version of it.
mhm.
And that's great when that version works, but when that version isn't suitable or doesn't work, like what then, right? Whereas now you have different versions to choose from.
right?
And they require you to understand different ways of underwriting a file and different lenders' policies, and that has challenges, right, to learning. But the option is there, so
Right.
I think you gain much more than you lose. Yeah,
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you, Martin. You gain way more than you lose. I think, in the bank, you have these referral sources that, it's kind of mandated that everybody is, kind of working together and referring within the institutions. And so I think a common misconception is that you're losing this network that refers to you. But at the same time, I mean, I think where I'm maybe lost at, I don't really look at that as a loss per se.
Mhm.
I gained so many more referral sources outside because my realtor partners refer to me twice, if not more, than they ever did before. And
Mhm.
I really think that the reason for that is because when I worked for the one institution, they would really only send me clients that belong to that institution,
Mhm.
right?
Me too.
That fit
And
that box.
it's
Yeah.
super common, right? And I think that now I'm not pigeonholed into that one box, right? They do realize that now. Um, I don't belong to one and I have a solution for all. And, I kind of say that, before I had one box that everybody had to fit in, and now I have a box for everybody.
Do you feel that they see you more as an expert than before?
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that goes,
And you kind of have to be in this space, right? Just because
you do.
you need knowledge of so many different things rather than, like you said, just being an expert on one kind of criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. One of the biggest apprehensions I think that people have when they leave the bank and go into the broker space is that their business is going to be severely impacted, right? Their business is going to drop, right? Or
Impacted like
negatively,
positively.
negatively, but it's that fear of the unknown, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, and let's be honest. Any major change in your career, any major adjustment, you're gonna if you have an existing book of business in our line of work, I always tell people you're gonna go like this. But as you start to learn and the support you have and the resources and the drive that you have, then you're going to go like this, right? And that growth is really up to you, right? But that's a big fear that I found that people had was, oh, are my referral sources, my clients still going to deal with me? Are my referral sources going to deal with me? I found it was the opposite. When I left the bank and I went to brokering, most of my realtor partners are like, oh man, what
Finally.
took you so long, right? It's just like, great. And I equate it to this. I figure that if you go to an individual that works for just one institution with one policy, if there is a decline there, they have to take that client and they have to go back and restart the process. Whereas with the mortgage broker, we intake that
That's a
customer.
good point.
Right? We intake that customer and now we have various options.
Which can be running parallel to
which
each
can
other.
be running
not,
parallel to
not
each other.
after one is declined or
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. That's a good point. I mean, personally, I experienced the same thing as you. Like, I found my business expanded. You can't speak for everybody's business, right? Everybody's business is built a little bit differently. Like, I think all three of our businesses are built differently. So for somebody coming from the bank, they have to kind of do their own research and say, okay, here's my business now. How is it going to change when I leave?
Mhm.
Because everybody's business is a little bit different, whether it's built on realtors or builders or internal channels. That's kind of a decision that everybody needs to make individually,
excellent point.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But no, personally, I found, once again, common sense approach. When you have more options for clients, you're gonna have the opportunity to help more clients, and you're gonna see more clients, right?
Yeah.
Simple as that, really.
I mean, I really think that the amount of clients that I've lost in comparison to when I was with the bank has decreased substantially.
Right.
Like, I cannot tell you, when I was at the bank, I mean, we lost clients due to rate, due to not being able to find a solution. I mean, there were plenty of reasons.
And not only do you lose those clients, but that also impacts the
impacts
trust
the relationship
with the
with your
relationship where that
Really?
client came
Yeah.
from, right?
The partner. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
with the partner.
Mhm.
And that became a really big problem, in certain times when that one institution wasn't that competitive on rate. Then, your realtor partner is more hesitant to send that
Right.
deal to you. And then, that's impacting that relationship where, when I moved into the broker channel, it was a completely different experience. I rarely lose a client now. It's actually incredible. I barely have conversations around. I don't really negotiate rate that much. I mean, we all negotiate rate, but it's a different conversation.
Relationship
Different
is
dynamic.
different.
conversation.
Yeah.
Dynamic
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, I put it this way: in the A space, a premium borrower is going to know that they're a premium borrower, and they know that they can shop, and they're going to shop you regardless,
Yeah.
whether you're at one institution or whether you're in the broker channel.
Mhm.
What we usually say to brokers is expand and diversify your book, right? Learn the other lenders, learn the other solutions, and start to provide those solutions to all of your other partners because those markets exist.
Well,
Those customers are out there, right? And sometimes they don't know that those options are out there, like Cass was saying. And I can't tell you how many times we've been able to, like Cass was saying, have a life-changing solution for someone. I thought this was it, man. I thought it was over, right? I didn't think there was a way out of this situation. And you can find that help, right?
Right.
And yeah, I don't negotiate on rate either, right? I mean, to be honest with you, when people come to me with rate and I just say, well, what are you calling around for? Just go to ratehub.ca, man. Like that's
Right.
where the rates are. You want relationship, experience, trust, guidance, process, communication. I'm your guy.
100%.
That's
Right.
right. And relationship, when coming from a bank, your relationship it's limited because you only help them at the time of purchase. After that,
Exactly.
the bank deals with them,
Yeah,
right?
that was the
It's all
worst.
internal. Whereas on the broker channel, we can help them with the purchase, we can help them with the refinancing, we can help them at renewal. So that relationship with a broker compared to somebody at the bank, it's just exponentially
Much stronger.
Yeah.
stronger,
Yeah.
right? For sure.
Has longevity
100%.
as long as you manage it well,
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
Speaking of relationships, I'll start with you, Martin. Making the change, obviously, you got to consider your better halves, your family, right? Your
Mhm.
spouses, your friends, your social networks, because once again you're going to start something up, and let's not sugarcoat it. You're starting a new business, right? You're starting your brand and your business, so there's going to be some work involved. How was that experience when you first started year one? Let's say workload, relationship, the conversation with the spouse and with the family. How does that prior to making the
Yeah.
move and then making the move?
Yeah, I felt really excited to make the move when it was official. When I finally made that decision, I felt really excited and kind of invigorated by the fact that, okay, I'm starting a business, right? And I'm in full control and everything is, so there's stress with that, but it's also what motivates you.
Mm-hmm.
So it was exciting. I can't say I didn't enjoy it. I was a little bit apprehensive at first, right? Because you don't know really what to expect, and you know that you're going to have financially a setback for a little while because your income is paused, so to speak, for a bit until you kind of get up and running. But that aside, I think it was exciting and it was fun to let people know that you've made a change and your partners and
Great
all
reason
of
to reach out, right?
yeah, it was a great reason to reach out with people that maybe you hadn't talked to in a long time. And often, there was excitement on their end too. So like all of my partners that I work with in the industry were really supportive and really wanted me to succeed. And that was really helpful and kind of pushing me forward, right?
Yeah, I
Awesome.
think Martin and I talked about this quite a bit at the beginning. The excitement really encouraged us and helped us to know that we were making the right decision.
Yeah.
If I wasn't as excited, I probably if it was just fear and anxiety and that kind of thing, I maybe wouldn't have been so confident with my decision. But the excitement and ability to grow and learn, it helped me to know that I did the right thing. And like you say, like everybody around me that I expressed the change with was super supportive. And in this business, I really think that like your referral sources, they're always going to be changing anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have some that have been around for a
You have
decade.
the core.
You've got your core group for
Yeah.
sure. But then there's, the ones that kind of ebb and flow. You've had them around maybe for the last 4 years or so. But then, and then you get some newbies when somebody drops off. And I think that's just part of the business. And that's something that's not going to change whether you're in the bank or the broker world.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're somebody who can, kind of have that flexibility and know that you can't be complacent in this business. You just can't. Like, no matter what side you're on, the moment you think that I'm set, I got like 10 referral sources, let's just sit back and collect.
Curveball.
Paid in the
You know,
shade, right?
then
The work is done.
then
It's all just gonna flow in,
No.
right?
that is when you just put the nail in your coffin because that's exactly when you start getting replaced.
Right. Right.
And Michael, I just want to point out here, you being fresh, newly married,
Right.
congratulations,
Thank
sir.
you.
And starting your business, you're the youngest of us, I guess you would say.
Right.
How's that? How's the work-life balance? How's, I know you're a go-getter and a grinder and you're driving your business. How's that been?
It's been great. I mean, I think we can all say though, when you're preparing for the transition, you want to be prepared. It's not something that you decide to do on a whim and say, okay, I'm jumping. Here we go. Right. You want to be well prepared because there is a learning curve and there is, like you said, there's going to be a little bit of a pause. But I wouldn't say that it's a long pause when it comes to income or when it comes to business. It's going to be as long of a pause as you want it to be. Because if you hit the ground running, you can get going fairly quickly and you can run faster than you were at the bank, right?
Was there ever a
Due to those
conversation? Sorry to cut you off. Was there ever a conversation with the better half saying, "Listen, I'm starting something new. I'm probably gonna have to get back into the trenches and grinding it out, doing those events again. Sometimes in the evenings, networking, maybe having to sacrifice the weekend. Sometimes was there that
I
conversation?
think that was the expectation for
Yeah.
sure.
right.
I don't think it was any different in the bank. Like
think it's a
again,
little
I
different.
I think that I still put in the work on the evenings. I still put in the work on the weekends. I was still going to events. I was still doing all the activities that I was supposed to be doing. So for me, I don't really think that it changed very much. Keep in mind, I had an 18-month-old baby when I was doing my exams and deciding to enter into the broker channel, and getting, daycare and all of
What a
those things.
grinder. I love
And,
it, eh?
Right.
I was still up many hours of the night and that kind of thing. And for me, like I was super motivated by, the opportunity. And
Yeah.
I think that's what just kind of fueled my fire. And, I don't really think that I am putting in, like a crazy amount of work to get to the results that I'm at now. I think
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
really
Right.
similar.
But I think the bottom line, like talking about spouses and family, at the bottom line, if you enjoy your job more,
Yeah.
which I do since
Yeah.
I made the jump, that makes that's gonna
It's
make
fresh
their life
again, right?
easier.
It's
encourages
fresh.
them
It's
to
new.
support
If you're
you
happier at
too.
work, right? If
Yeah.
you like your job more, if you feel like you're helping people
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
then you just feel better in general. And I think that any spouse would appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the goal, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like at the end of the day, I mean, I'm a happier mother, a happier wife because at the end of the day, like I'm happier
Yeah.
because I'm doing more of what I love.
Right.
Yeah, we talk about that work-life balance a lot, right, in our culture, and it's a bit of a cliche, but really, there's so much to that, and I think more so of a focus lately by people since COVID, right?
hmm
And for me, that was a big factor. Is I just didn't feel I had that balance anymore, and my wife definitely knew I didn't have that balance, and
Yeah.
she kind of was the one that kind of pushed me finally, and
Right.
I finally did make the change. But this job is by far the best balance I've ever had of any job.
Right.
I have
agree.
4 kids. I have
Martin's doing a
responsibilities
lot
and
of
things
fishing.
like that.
Martin's doing a lot of
I
fishing.
love to fly fish, as you know. I
Yeah.
have other hobbies too, but that's the one that you know me the best from. But that balance is just really huge, especially now. I'm like, I'm middle age at least, right? So I don't want to have to
Right.
be beholden to something, just to get through the day, So
Yeah.
the brokerage channel is really perfect for that, right? For that balance, because you can pick that
For sure.
mix.
And if you enjoy it more, I think that work-life balance is it's easier to balance.
Totally.
Right?
I actually really struggled with that a lot when I was at the bank, work-life balance, and I found I didn't even have time for the things that I wanted to do outside of the bank anymore.
hmm
And actually, since I became a broker, I've got back into the gym. I do yoga again.
Is that
I'm
is
back
that
to hiking.
is that because at the bank did you feel a little bit more frustrated sometimes and things took a little bit longer maybe to get done or maybe they never got done?
Yeah.
But I feel like when you're more frustrated, it's that work-life balance. It seems like it's
And that seeps into your personal day.
100%.
I
Right?
think
it does.
the one of the biggest problems, well, yes, like things took so long because we also had so many systems to track this and do that and mandates
Mhm.
for this and mandates for that. And
that you
granted,
had to use.
we have to do certain things in the broker channel as
Right.
well, again, but they really are, I mean, more streamlined.
That's where
I
that
really believe
integration
that.
is so key, right? I find
Right.
it saves a lot of time.
Yeah, we come from the same. I mean, it's the same, a little bit different, but pretty much the same story at every big institution. Guys, we're coming up for time. But last question, and I was going to ask you actually about what would your past self or the individual that started in the industry back in the day tell themselves today. But I actually want to ask this question: if you're a banker considering moving to the broker channel, knowing what you guys know now and going through the experience, who would you recommend, or what individual or what traits or maybe what someone's looking for and are not expecting, who would you say don't make the change to? And I'll give it some context. Um, there's new systems to learn. It's becoming more and more of a technology maybe based industry,
Huge, yeah.
right? Policies are changing, so you have to learn a lot of lender policies and you got to move on the fly. I'll kind of set it there. Who would be a person that you would recommend? Maybe, you know what, staying at the bank is probably a good solution for you. This may be this may not be your cup of tea. I know it's a bit of a loaded
I think
question.
someone who really just likes that same 9 to 5 and doesn't like change, doesn't like curveballs, and having to manage, problems and solve those problems kind of on the fly.
Mhm.
Like if you're a little bit more, prefer to be a little bit more structured and
Mhm.
have a little bit more of a safety net, don't like to take those risks, then it's probably, not as suited to those people. But
Mhm.
I think if you're, self-starter and you have that motivation and you want to be more in control of your,
Entrepreneurial.
you're more
Right.
entrepreneurial. I think this is perfect, right?
Right.
Michael?
I think somebody who's not tech savvy, that'd be a huge obstacle.
Mhm.
Just because as times are changing, every lender has their own portal that you have to get to know, and you kind of have to adapt and learn. So I could see someone that is familiar with bank systems, and maybe it took them some time to even learn that, and now that they're used to it, they have to go and learn a bunch of new ones.
Mhm.
That would be intimidating, and I think that would be for some people a lot harder than others, for sure.
A much hard,
It's a steep learning
steep
curve.
steep
For sure.
learning curve.
Just on the tech side of things. For
Yeah.
sure. And never mind like policy, that's a different animal. But on the tech side of things, just knowing how, once again, different portals and different interfaces work, that's just a reality of our business now. You have to learn it.
Cass?
I mean, if you're a banker and you're really comfortable where you're at,
Mhm.
you don't really have any aspirations of further growth. And you just kind of want to sit back and kind of keep things as they are, then you probably should just stay at the bank.
Mhm.
But again, I think that people who have a growth mindset and are entrepreneurial and want to own a business and
Want more
and
tools in their
manage
tool
their
belt?
clients, and yeah, absolutely have more tools in their tool belt,
Mhm.
be able to help people more than they should absolutely like make the jump, because like you're never going to lose when you take a chance on yourself.
Mm.
That's the way that I look at it. Like, I've taken a chance on myself a few times when I was, 24 years old, and I decided to move across the country from Ontario to Alberta to become a mortgage specialist in a city that I didn't know anybody, and I thrived. So, I think that when it comes to, and again, like when I went from going from bank to broker, I knew that I mean, I really knew that there was no chance that I was going to fall on my face. Like,
Mhm.
let's be real. Like,
Yeah.
who's going to just let themselves like do that? Nobody. I don't think anybody who's even thinking about going bank to broker. You're not going to fail. Like, you're going to work hard and you're going to succeed at whatever level you want to.
You need
So just go
confidence.
for it.
You need confidence to do that, right?
You
And
do.
that's what
Yes.
that's what. So
Yeah.
I would say people that are at the bank that are maybe not as confident in themselves and need a little bit of insulation, that's totally fine. But those, I think, are the people that maybe need the backing of a big
Yeah,
institution.
if you don't want to
right?
be out prospecting and
Right.
building those relationships, then the bank is
Right.
perfect because it really comes to you,
More or
right?
less, right?
And you
More or
can just
less.
kind of take what's there and manage that, and it's easier, I
Right.
think.
And that confidence might just come with time, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's new to the industry, they
Mhm.
might not have that confidence.
Mhm.
But a couple of years down the road, when they do, that's when I think
I mean, my
it's a-
confidence grew exponentially when I became a broker.
Right.
Like, I don't think I had the same confidence I have now than when I was at the
Right.
bank.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
definitely
I agree.
wouldn't say that.
That's interesting.
I agree.
That's interesting.
Because now we know both sides, right?
And I also think that if you're in the banking world and you get a lot of your business from the bank, then you probably, again, should just stay at the
Yeah,
bank.
I find that too. I think for me, it's being entrepreneurial, being self-sourced and driven. Tech can have a big piece on it.
Mhm.
Some people leverage it more than others, but it is growing and growing in our industry. But for me, it's really about if you're terrified of being uncomfortable, it may be a difficult place because you will be uncomfortable at first, like anything with any change. But with the right resources, technology, support, culture, you get up and running really, really quick.
Right.
Absolutely.
Guys, that's our time. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. It's always a pleasure to sit and hang and chill and chat with you guys. And I can't wait to see you all continue to grow under your unique banners. And we'll catch you on the next podcast.
There we go.
Thank
It was
you.
fun.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you.
All right, guys.